What's going on, workforce? Brian and Chris here, and today we're diving back into the conversation about RICHCOB, about Ultimate, about clears, about content creators. Chris, what's your take before we jump into everybody's comments here?
I mean, I recorded kind of my live reaction to, a couple of posts on it, and you and I had talked about it over the last couple of days. It'd been in chat the last couple of days, and so my thoughts went long. I basically published a full self-talking podcast over on Gaming Kinda. You kept it down at 15 minutes on Ginger Prime. All in all, like it's frustrating to see any negativity around an event that I think is so positive. I understand why it's there, and so like I do question, is there something we can learn from the way that's handled? But that, when I try to follow that line of thought, I naturally go to, what would we want done differently? In the past, when we've seen an event where a portion of the community is frustrated, I say, what could we have done differently that would have maybe left all the people who liked the way this worked the same, but would have offered something that included more of the people that feel hurt by this event? And for those people, like, I don't see a way forward. I don't see, like, should he just not have streamed it? Should he not have done it? Should expert players not be allowed to help things? Should we be encouraging a lack of collab content? If he cleared it with all sprouts, would it have been better? Does that somehow make your clear more valuable? Like I think through, like, okay, what happens if we do this differently? And none of them satisfy what I think the group that's upset, and yet many of those things make less quality content for the people that really got a lot of joy watching this.
And so guys, that's a really good kind of summary where we both stand. Like, what's the actionable piece from this? And we can't seem to find an answer, so if you have an answer to that, sound off in the comments below. If you're new on Work to Game, and this might seem very different kind of style presentation, we used to do this, show called Community Feedback. And, occasionally we sit down on the channel and we highlight some comments that you guys leave us and we discuss them. And so I believe I've collected a wide range of opinion in these comments, some interesting points that these comments make. I thought Chris and I would go and dive through them and comment on them. And so to start off, why don't you take the first comment, Chris?
So Eric says, Xenos called it. People would be happy with Rich and Asmund playing until they end up clearing things that most people have not. Luckily, this is the minority. For anybody not familiar with Xenos, Xenos is one of the end game style raiders in the community, and puts out a ton of content, is not afraid of sharing his view. And so very knowledgeable on the in-game content. And I think this is something we've seen with sprouts across the board. People are overwhelmingly, almost toxically positive with them right up until they're not. And then there is this group of people that seem to just come out of the woodworks the moment that they cross some invisible line. And this is just the example of the line that Rich crossed, but we've seen it with people who maybe didn't like a particular expansion. We've seen it people who get to the end and say they don't like some aspect of endgame. We've seen a number of examples like this where people have been so overwhelmingly supportive, where even if you say, I think this sprout needs to temper it down a little bit, or I think they're kind of missing the point here, it's like, how dare you critique this new player? And then you get to the end and it's like, I never liked them. And so that, I don't know where that comes from. But this does seem to be the most recent example.
Seeing talking about how people would be thrilled until they're not, until they're doing content that they can't. There is that invokes that sense that, this is something different, right? Like, somebody came and did the story and they loved it, and I got to watch them experience that. That is definitely celebrated. But as soon as it kind of is like, wait a minute, they're kind of going out of order, it does cause a little bit of a disruption in expectations. And that's where the conversation has, I think, splintered. One of the things that we'll see here in a couple more comments is that a lot of people are looking at it from like different angles in that regards, and hopefully we'll get to explore that. But Eric, thank you for the comment. And hopefully I don't butcher the name. Natorama says, why is this drama? Honestly, this should motivate people to do ultimate content. I plan on doing it in the near future. This is coming from a guy who started about 2 months ago. That's exactly like what I'm seeing in terms of, we're seeing with like Palace of the Dead, people going for Necromancer titles, ultimate clears. Even people like myself have been invited, and we're now talking about Work to Game doing an ultimate. You just stepped into one, unintentionally, but you got your butt kicked, as one would hope. Chris did a blind.
It turns out if you don't prep and the group is not filled with people who are used to progging, it only takes like 1 or 2 mechanics to wipe you repeatedly for a lockout.
Yeah.
So it turns out there are actual mechanics in Ultimate. And so our group tried. We learned quite a bit, but we did not get past the first phase. We did not get past. And we had Rin, we had Todd, we had people who are talented and have done all this and were happy to teach.
Yeah.
And we still didn't get that clear. So it turns out there are mechanics in this thing. It was enjoyable. I learned quite a bit. It showed me how much more I have to learn. Of course, I wish I'd done prep. I just went in because I was already in a group with Ren and Todd from doing E12 prog. And they were like, let's toss you into UCOB.
Let's do it. But that's what we're seeing. I think we're seeing a lot. I think this is also amazing advertising. One of the things that I felt the biggest pain from not a new Ultimate this summer, especially with the gap to Endwalker, was just how much advertising that actually would be for Endwalker. But it turns out there's a whole bunch of new players in the game, and now they're also then advertising like some of this insane content, which has people, and I've seen people in the comments. I didn't get to highlight all of them. I've seen people in comments on Work the Game, on Ginger Prime. I've seen comments on live streams talking about like, man, that sounds like something interesting I'd like to do.
How do I find a group?
Right. And I say, hit up our Discord, Llama Todd, check him out. Like, there are pathways. It does require, so there is a social component to that kind of style of content, and it does require kind of coming out of that comfort zone and stepping into it. And so that's kind of where the gap is. Why don't you take third comment?
Yeah, we just brought people from chat last night. I mean, it wasn't people just hopped in, and we had a great time. It didn't take anything away. Ren has at this point cleared 413 groups, and all of those have had at least, like it's not uncommon for those to have 1 or more people in it that haven't got their clear. I generally agree with you. Dark Prime says, in Rich's case, he did well in the fight. I'm going off of other comments, so he deserved the win and the title. He most likely had some streamer privilege in who he played with, but that's life. I would consider it different if he was dead for 60% plus of the fight, and the other 7 just carried on without him. At that point, as a streamer, just don't pump your chest about it. In Rich's case, he played well enough to earn it, so it should end there. I would say, like, as the other streamers, Brian, like, if you were offering to help somebody, I think he made it a lot of fun for the other streamers in the group too. They were laughing and having a good time. They even enjoyed getting him the Savage clear on Exodus necessary to unlock it. They were laughing and having a good time. If he was just there like, well, whenever you guys are ready, I don't think they would have done 20 or 40 hours and make way in their schedules and stream during hours that aren't typical to make these really long late raid segments.
Yeah, I think a lot of people start connecting the financial benefit to the other streamers, and they weren't even streaming the whole time either. So there wasn't like they were live all the time, but there is residual growth. But there is residual growth across the entire community because big streamers that have big audiences are playing this game, and they're coming in and playing this game and finding a home and a community in this game. So like it's a rising tide raises all ships. And so yeah, like what do you want the guy to do? Like, oh, I'm sorry, you become too famous in life, you can't come play our game. Like, that doesn't benefit us. It's like it's a self-fulfilling, knee injury that you're sitting here like you're hitting a hammer on your knee, and then you're like mad about it that you can't walk. Like, all right, like what do you want him to do? What do you want the guy to do?
Yeah, I mean, go look in Party Finder. There is an overwhelmingly ton of ultimates. There's a ton of parties doing it. You see Necromancer attempts over on Twitch all the time. Obviously, those aren't in Party Finder because people are trying to do them solo. But there's a lot of interest being driven to these topics right now by publicly people attempting these things.
Yeah, we've seen the numbers. It's unfortunate the response that I kind of default to. And I don't default to this response as a content worker. I default to this response as somebody who's just generally interested. I watch other people talk about like content creation as an economy, as something that is to be studied, as like how much do advertisers get for their value, for their views. And it's fascinating. I wish actually like Nels or something like that, like a new guy I just discovered has been diving into this whole Twitch to YouTube thing. And so like in this specific case, it's like Square Enix is directly benefiting from this, and everybody sees that. I'm so curious, guys, tune into this on the 17th for the live letter with us. I'm generally curious what new number they're going to reveal. Is it 24 million or is it something ridiculous? Like, did Yoshi P hit his 30 million goal? that he thought was a couple years out. That we said that I felt like he
You'd
needs
have to
the
bring
Xbox.
on Xbox.
Yeah, you got to bring on
crazy.
Xbox. Something crazy. And do they hit 30 million or get anywhere close? Like if it's above 25 million on the 17th, like that is a massive amount of influx of players. We've only, I think, brought in, like from people who click our link, we don't get paid for it, but we track it in terms of numbers, like 10,000 plus. I haven't looked at the number in a while, but we know that we've been able to help get 10,000 people to at least check out the free trial. And you could say that maybe not all of them.
We do the math on 10,000 over 30 million. Oh, that's not very many.
Not many. It's drop in the bucket. But thank you guys. And hopefully you, and for those of you who have played and said that they've enjoyed the game, we're really happy. Now, Mike says, yes.
Just every one that gets in, I enjoy.
Oh, yeah.
My sister's in the free trial right now. And every time she checks in, there have been people coming by stream to let me know how their progress is going. It's awesome. It's awesome to hear that somebody else is enjoying something you enjoy.
Absolutely. 100 every time. Mike says, yes, life is not fair. That said, Rich did not get a clear. He used his fame to get an ultimate clearing group. It's no different than when someone pays for a clear. It's the same reason people discount cash shop mounts. You didn't earn the mount. You just paid for it. The whole point of an RPG is to end game glamour. It's just flex that you got something that was really hard to get. Same reason that people got mad at Mignoni when he showed off the 2 gil sync mounts. He just had people give him the gil to buy the mounts. The average player doesn't have other players to give them millions of gil. Even Asmongold is constantly asking his chat on what he should do when going through the MSQ. If he really wanted the true new player perspective of the game, he wouldn't ask for his character what to do. A normal player doesn't have 100,000 people to ask what to do when starting out the game. I get why they do it. They're content creators, but most of all, their achievements are completely devalued because they don't have to work nearly as hard as the average player to get them.
What are they presenting it as? I think the big frustrations in the community, when the community has unilaterally kind of disliked somebody, we've had most recently with Pyromancer's, not Pyromancer, probably people like Pyromancer. What's the one that came in and drawing a blank? Quinn, thank you.
Yeah,
I was like, I picture him playing action RPGs. And so Quinn came in, and then Lazy Peon in his first take of the community. It's when people come in and claim to be something they're not, right? Brian, you and I have tried to, it's somewhere in those 3,500 videos, make it abundantly clear that we're not experts on extreme content, savage content, ultimate content. Up until recently, I really didn't know a lot about like expert crafting. I'm learning a lot. I'm having a blast. I'm getting enough confident where like every Wednesday I'm feeling a little better about answering questions as people come in.
Yeah.
But like, when Rich puts that glamour on, that is not, I triumphed over blind prog. That glamour for him is a reminder of his journey. And so your glamour may mean to you, I remember when the 7 friends I grew up with and I got together every other Friday for 4 months, and we streamed for how many hours we could, and we got our clear, and it was amazing. And oh my gosh, I remember we were down to 2% and only 3 of us were alive and whatever. And it's this story, and it's your journey. For Rich, that is a reminder of his involvement in this event. It is when you're seeing Wambulance commands popping up in streams now, where it's him and making the Wambulance noise as he calls in that final limit break, getting the last hit, and it's all of them saying, use your limit break, and him going, ah! Like it's amazing, and that's what it's a reminder of. It's not I have not seen anything even remotely hinting that he's like, I am better than you guys. Outside of just the normal trash talk that he does. He stayed late to talk to Mr. Happy about how to play Machinist, asked a ton of detailed questions. He studied some of the guides and stuff on stream when he realized that he was not going to be able to take that in at the degree he wanted to while making the style of content he likes to make. He said, I'm going to study this offline. And then he did. Yes, he cleared it in 4 days or 5 days or whatever the total calendar days was. But in that time, it was something between like 20 and 40 hours of pulls. So like that is an incredible amount of hours. Many of us get tired in one lockout. Thank God there is a lockout timer that just says, hey, you can take a break.
Maybe go back to the market board, repair, and buy some more mats and materials. Potions.
Call it what it is. So like, I do think does it discount it? Well, that depends on the value you're assigning it. He's not saying, yeah, I'm pretty much the same as Ren now with 413 clears going for #1 parse. He's not saying that.
Right.
And like I was in a party last night with Dave Greco, who got his legend status this week. And people are like, oh, there's legends in your party. Ren and Todd, they're very, very good players. Dave Greco, first time in E12S, got his legend title like the day before. And so like they look the same glamour, same title.
Yeah. That's where
Dave and I were learning E12. And so it would be very easy to go,
yeah,
wow, that one legend doesn't seem to be as good at this E12 fight as the other two.
Oh,
yeah.
Imagine that.
But Dave also wasn't saying that. Dave was asking questions between pulls. He was right there with me. I waited for my E12 clear so I could play with Dave just as much as Todd. And I was excited that Ren got to join us. Like, it's about knowing, like, perspective. And so I don't think Rich here is claiming that it's anything other than what it is.
Right. I think other people are either trying to assign that the fact that, like, it says it devalues it. No, nothing's devalued. It's personal. Because, honestly, Cat Nerd follows it up. Was it fun for the people doing it? Yes. That's the objective of the game. Game 1. You won.
The official writer of Endwalker story was asked what the theme for the upcoming story is. And she said she would not answer, but if she had to give it a phrase, she would say, have fun. Have fun.
Yeah.
That's it. That's the theme for Endwalker, guys.
Yeah.
Have fun.
So
Game 1.
Rich did get the clear. He put the work in. He got the clear. Was he carried? Yeah, it's great that he got to play with 7 people who knew what they were doing. That definitely saved and cut off a lot of time.
He didn't organize that group, by the way. I don't think he
was that Todd
before that.
Was that Todd?
Yeah, he reached out to Todd. Todd put that group together.
Right. So
and I think Todd asked
him,
what kind of group do you want to have? What kind of experience do you want to have? And so Todd said, like, I could reach out to other content creators that are talented. I can try to organize some sprouts. I can try to organize people from your community. What do you want here?
Yeah.
That's my understanding of how that played out. It was on Twitter.
It's on Twitter, guys. The cesspool. If you get a chance, delete Twitter. But if you're stubborn, be sure to follow us. We just gave away. I know he is. That's what I do, man. That's what I do. We just gave away a lunar whale mount. So if you're stubborn and you don't want to delete Twitter, follow us. We'll do another giveaway. But you should just delete it. It will make your life a lot better.
But you won't win lunar whale mounts from Woke to Game.
Well, did you say Woke to Game?
Work to Game.
Oh,
I don't think we're Woke to Game.
No. I think if anything, you're like more woke than I, but not even the scale of what that means. All right. You're like, what?
Okay.
Yeah.
Raging Cyclone. The funny thing about this is it happens all the time. New players in an FC are carried through a Savage or Ultimate by their fellow FC members who already cleared it. Most people have been carried through something by other players every day. So what's the big deal this time? You got to watch it. How is this any different? To be honest, it's not. So I'm not sure what all the grief is all about. Outside of World First Frog, I don't see anywhere that like there's anything that separates it.
Yeah. Oh, World 100th and 11th or World 1000th.
Oh, you used a guide. Oh, you used better loot than minimum level. Oh, right. You waited till Echo dropped. Oh, you did it with people that knew the fight.
Here's the thing, though. Like, all of that has always been consistent. There's always been better gear. There's always been better knowledge. Things come, like, good things come to those who wait, right? Like, oh, hey, I just discovered this great game. All right, I'm not first, but I put time in. I made contacts. Back in my day, I used to walk uphill both ways in the snow. And that's just how life went. The Cat Soft Nose writes, I'm not into the hardcore rating, but my brother is, and I've seen the hours that he has to put into it just to make progress into some of the fights. I would say that Rich had an easier time clearing UCOB because he got to play with the best of the best from what I've heard. But in no way was he carried. If he was carried, he would have effectively been dead weight most of the time, only clearing when someone else got the kill. I really can't see how someone can be carried through an ultimate fight. Savage may be after everyone gears up. Ultimate are inherently minimum eye level from what I know. And yeah, everybody's going to have a different experience. Like, even the fact that you've said multiple times to me that even after we're not rating with Rich, they continue to play visually, that like the audience is obviously way down, but playing with different people changes the perspective, right? That the real challenge, the real ultimate fight in Ultimate is finding 8 people who can put their ego in check, work together, and stick with it. If you have to sit here and put it in and the time in, you put 40 hours in and it's, oh man, got to cut somebody, bring somebody else in. That's like a whole new group. It's a whole new dynamic. you know?
Yeah, my understanding is people who sell ultimate clears, a lot of times there's some against terms of service account sharing and stuff going on because they don't want to run it with just 7 people. I believe these probably can be cleared with 7, but 7 is different than queuing in with 8 and one person not contributing. The first mechanic that comes up in UCOB is going to, if it drops a twister on Rich, he's going to wipe the raid if he doesn't move.
Yeah.
So like the very first mechanic, I can tell you our group wiped to it over and over and over and over, and you just yeet the rest of your party straight into the wall and everybody dies. And Ren and Todd let us die to it a whole bunch of times and kept asking all of us newbies, what do you guys think it is? What do you think's causing this? And none of us knew because like I watched RICHCOB, but they got it down. They got past Twitania in like the first 3 polls. And so I was just watching his entertainment, and they weren't stuck on the stuff that I was stuck on.
Right.
They were stuck in later mechanics. And watching him learn debate didn't help me as a tank. It's like, oh, I don't need to know how to do that because that's not what's going on with me. I have a different set of requirements, which are much less, by the way. And so it's not minimum item level. It is synced, but it is synced down. You got to know your 70 rotations. One of the questions that's been asked is, can we have a way to sync on a dummy down to our 70 rotations to practice those for things like ultimate? Yeah, he wasn't dead.
He wasn't. The other side,
as a matter of fact, there were other people that died to other mistakes by people who are legends. So just because you get your legend status doesn't mean like, well, now that you got your title, you won't make mistakes ever again.
Perfect play every time.
Re-clears can be nasty.
Mm-hmm. And that's the difference in party makeup and playing with others and, you know, just the content. But yeah, it's not minimum eye level because we've also seen that people have made the case that it's actually gotten slightly easier, not on purpose, just because how gear scales and scaling works in this game.
They've tried to protect it.
They've tried to protect it. I would still say it's the most protected of all the content in the game. You know, 100%.
Alongside Deep Dungeon solo clears.
Yeah.
I mean, Ren has, there have literally been groups that have 8 tanked this fight. So like, can it be done at a skill level well above Rich getting his clear? Like, yes. But just go try some ultimate, guys.
Yeah. All right. Muppet Mania. I like that name. I see a few factors here in his clear and people's reaction. He did put in the hours, less than most, but still. He has way more time to play, but then again, that's his job. He's having 7 other players who know the fight outs inside and out, and someone who calls every single mechanic makes it easier. Saying otherwise is just simply a lie. Finding 7 players of good quality to run content with is, for the most part, who want to run ultimate, really difficult, and you end up with just one bad player and your time is wasted. Did he have an advantage? Yes. Did he deserve to clear the ultimate? That's not for me to say. Did he diminish the value of the title? Some who've struggled with this fight for a long time think so, and others will not see it that way. Honestly, I think people are entitled to their own feelings on this, not for me or anyone else to tell them about this. In the end, I think while we should ignore those who scream the loudest on Twitter, we should also say to those who silently are upset about it that it's okay to find this unfair long as you're not a bully about it. What do you think?
I mean, you're definitely entitled to your opinion, always.
Yeah.
You know, and I think Rich and Asmon and, you know, anybody else has thought about like, well, what is the best way to clear this content? What is the best way, especially content creators who are trying to share this journey with their community? What's the best way to get into the game? Should I do the story offline? Should I do the story online? There's been a debate. You see content creators come to definitive permanent solutions for how they handle it. But that doesn't mean it's for everybody else. You know, Bellular's said that he thinks streaming the story is a mistake. You've got other people who think streaming the story has been one of the greatest joys that they've had in content creation. So it's about choosing where you are on the spectrum. And that's true of even people that are not content creators. Mm-hmm. He did not have, when he started his opening group, Grimo had not gotten a clear either. So it was just 6. But obviously very talented group of people. That's going to range, you know, and that's just going to be luck. I will say that if his long-term plan was to do 50, 60, 70-hour work weeks to play this game so that he could get a shiny weapon at the end, that's not a very good exchange rate. So like there were cheaper ways to get an ultimate content in total time than put the amount of time investing into making content for this game that he's done. If that's the big, like, oh, well, he saved himself 30 or 40 hours of prog. Yeah, but he's done like a whole lot of other things that he's shared, and he's had to be live and he's had to be kind of turned on, dialed up, where most of us are like, well, I'd just rather sit there and read the quest. It seems way easier than having to like talk to chat and be super, you know, loud and ridiculous all the time. He's put in the work.
Yeah. Oh, and then even before, like with WoW, like it's, you know, what is it, 10 years to success,
Yeah, that's the phrase. 10 years to overnight success.
Yeah.
So Jiro says, in my case, I'm not really salty. It's just that most people say playing 2 to 3 months can't do ultimates right away because you need to go through a process to do so. The process is to get good in the game. Yeah, that's a process. Rich didn't have to get good with his class since you can DPS carry UCOB by now. He had to do mechanics, that's true, but Ren stole his brain process by telling him literally almost everything. I mean, grats to Rich, but let's be honest, he can't re-clear it now. He wouldn't be able to re-clear it, and that's a fact. You usually go to ultimates if you have confidence in doing your job right, but that's getting 80% parses, mitigation, shields, heals, and so on. A real ultimate is very different, guys. Don't take that clear as an example. If you want to do ultimates for yourself, do savages first. Kill dummies in the lawns. Just practice first. It's not easy. He's famous. It's different. My opinions, but no hate though. Peace. So, yeah. I mean, how do you feel about that?
Honestly, I feel like they say it pretty well. At the end of the day, like, yeah, I would say that, like, if he wants to do re-cleared, that will be something interesting. But sure. I would bet that it's not interesting in terms of content, right? Because then essentially people, like, no matter what, people are going to discount him regardless. And I think that ties right back. We'll come back to
now you've done it before.
But that ties back to the fact what Zeno said. Like, as soon as he starts doing something that other people haven't, that's when they're going to start being frustrated with it. And that's where they're, like, nitpicking. Whatever, like, even if you went with 7 other blind people, cleared it, not watching a guide. Oh, he watched a guide offline, or like clearly there was going to be somebody, that the group that's frustrated, is fine. Now, I think that they're the minority. And I think overall, this is a net positive for the game and getting people to run the content and have the conversation. And then also get excited for the next ultimate, which is going to kick off a whole new storm of things. And I think that's going to be really interesting. Will we see Rich, will we see the big WoW players come in for the next round of Ultimate? I don't see them doing it as a day one thing, but I'm not necessarily familiar with like their content all the time, right? So it's not like I tune into every stream, but it's like still like, hey, this is what's happening. So at the end of the day, I don't think like
we've seen Lashback in that case too. I mean, Scott Zone went in and did week 1, and because it was drastically different than him doing old content, there was some pushback on the way he handled that.
Oh yeah. True, because it's also different from the style that people have come to expect. That's one of the things we're speculating on, just from a numbers perspective. Like, what does the first 2 weeks of Endwalker look like for all of these new, content creators who've come into this space and been so welcome, and then get caught up, and then like, is it a ghost town for the story? And all of a sudden, like, will they understand what that means and that impact and how different that feels for that period of time? Because that's something Scott's not even reflected on. Is that it's weird during patch content, during expansion content, viewership drops as opposed to like increases. Like, it's only after the fact that it has the opposite effect overall. So
yeah, I mean, having a good raid lead helps. You'll see if you watch pulls with Ren and Todd, and if you watch later pulls, they don't continuously call all mechanics in all pulls. They will pull the training wheels away sometimes while they chat with their community. Last night while we were doing E12, I had Ren stream up and Todd stream up on my other monitors, so I could keep an eye on their perspective when they were like teaching me between pulls. And I'd glance up mid pull, and like Ren was watching a cooking video. He wasn't talking to me. He wasn't helping. It was just dead silence. At one point, I thought Discord went out, and that's because we were in early phases that they taught a lot early on, but at that point we got it. So like, is it better to have people that can kind of guide that journey? Sure, but there's plenty of people out there that are willing to kind of learn that. Our typical advice is not to jump straight to the top end of something. Don't just jump straight into the deep end. But I think Rich would have I think he would have progged Savage first if that's what it took before Ultimate. I think this is when the group lined up. So I think he was flexible with the content schedule. He would have gone through the Savages. I mean, he's been able to make content out of anything. So if Todd had said, well, people were really thinking that we'd do this in like October.
Right.
I think Todd could have filled the time just fine. Rich could have filled the time.
Last 2 comments before we wrap up the video. Okay, so Kierman says, okay, so I'm a WoW player and we sell clears for hard content. While they're tons cheaper than most, we feel that it gives players who may not have access to the skill to be part of the higher end raid guide to chance to experience the content. It gives them the chance to see what they're playing and the levels like. We enjoy them a great deal. And their pleasure and fun reminds us why we play too. I actually don't find buying a clear to be anything strange. It's really tough for people who are either not skilled enough players or who don't have a massive amount of time to put in the game. So this is from somebody who sells those kind of runs and those kind of clears. And the first thing I in my mind, it is such a weird topic because ultimately there's this, I call it an illusion because I see a lot of people say that it should be X, like games should be fair and even playing field. But that's just, I don't ever see that. I saw it maybe during a small period during the 90s with the Sega Genesis and the SNES. But then at some point, like everything kind of went back to like, there's unfair advantages in life. We talk about like in terms of content creation, what is your unfair advantage? Because a lot of people like will not use their unfair advantage for whatever reason. With Work to Game, our unfair advantage is that there's two of us. It's two voices. You get two thoughts. We can work on this. We can talk about it behind the scenes, what people seem to be responding to, what we are enjoying making, etc. And that's
two
our
editing
unfair.
computers,
Yes,
two thumbnail generators,
yes,
two comment responders.
Yeah. So that is essentially what we kind of refer to it. And so when it comes down to it, that some people's unfair advantage is they have more money than time. Some people's unfair advantage is they've got more time than money. And it is, I think essentially it's kind of key in terms of how you set your mind and you think of it. Like everybody has suffered in life, right? There's like, that's one of the things where like when you really factor it out, like I think there was this like, this parable or something I heard where it was like this person was grieving the loss of their husband. And then like the advice were like, go talk to everybody in town and tell the story. And in that journey, they talked to everybody, and it turns out everybody had suffered some kind of loss. And I think it was even Stephen Colbert who was talking about like in loss, we become more human because we can relate to each other like better than ever before because everybody has suffered something, right? So the sense that in this regards, it's kind of the opposite of this kind of privileged kind of moment of like, oh, he had this fame and this, like he was able to use this, like, yeah, like, but he's like, his life isn't perfect. Like there's things that there are downsides to that aspect, right? Like there's pressures to that aspect that you don't have to go through when you're sitting down to play your game. Like you're not under constant scrutiny. Imagine that. Like it's not a fun amount of pressure. And he puts himself out there voluntarily. And yes, it's afforded him the ability to have a career, but that's a very small percentage of content creators who get to even say that. And say that and mean that, as opposed to like, well, we're starving and everything's kind of going to crap behind the scenes. So I think that's kind of where I fall on that. I don't know if that's something you got out of this comment, but I think it's like, it's such an interesting thing that I see people take issue with because if it's just, I'm in my lane, right? Like I'm just like playing my game and someone's over there spending money. Like, all right, man, that's your money to spend. Whatever. It doesn't impact me.
Yeah. I think what Rich does well is I think he outwardly and externally represents the excitement that new players have. Sometimes you introduce a friend to the game and they say, yeah, it was awesome. But like when you're sitting in comms with them on their first clear, they kind of just sit there and they're like, they're just smiling. And so you don't get that outward overwhelming shouting and, the boyish locker room jokes and the, oh my gosh, like I'm so excited about this. I could just insert inappropriate non-ad friendly thing into a Work to Game video here. And like, he does all of that. And so he represents a lot of the excitement we picture Sprouts having, but it comes out of his face constantly for the entire duration of stream. And so I think what this comment represents to me is a reminder that this was not just about money or fame or clout for the people that were involved in his clear. Many of them were not live for this. I haven't seen any content from several of them relating to this. And some that were live weren't live all the time. They were live for different parts. I bugged one of them and opted out about not being live. And then they chose to go live because I was like, hey, I want to see your point of view on this. And so, I don't know if I was the only person messaging her, or if they were just like, well, all right, I got 10 DMs. I guess I'll go live. And so I know I pestered one of them, was like, hey, why aren't you live right now? And so I what's neat about this is when you see Ren and Todd choosing to teach this stuff, they get a kick out of this. They get joy out of this.
Yeah.
So there was something given back. You have to think people like Mr. Happy and Ren and Todd and Momo and Zeph and, Leon and everybody that was involved across the course of this, because there were many. Even if it had been the people who weren't involved, Xenos, Arthas, all these, and these are just the people whose names we know. There's all of these people, like Ren brought along his co-tank that he's progressed with. We've seen in recent history, we've covered people like Main Tank, who are incredible players, but don't do a ton of content generation. People like Svea, who is a much more cozy streamer, but an incredible talented player. Like when you see these people, like their ability to share this journey is also joy in itself. Their ability to teach this and share this after they've seen, when you have somebody like Mr. Happy that's been covering this game since 1.0 in virtually a full-time sense for the vast majority, if not all. I don't remember where exactly he went full-time, but it's been a long time. It would be really easy for him to go, just another patch, just another raid, just another tombstone. But moments like this, where he gets to share that with Rich, I think that's what this person's hitting on.
Yeah.
Is we enjoy them a great deal, and their pleasure and fun reminds us of why we play too. I think this was really fun for everybody that watched. I think it was really fun for everybody that got to be involved. Yeah, fun detected.
Absolutely. And finally, Michael says he had to do the work, quote unquote, quoting me. Okay, but he's also privileged in a way that most players aren't. I guess one could argue that he put the work into building a platform that allowed him to do this. But that's kind of beside the point to me. I think that people probably feel that IRL advantages should be reflected as in-game accomplishments.
How do you separate those? So you and I are playing poker, right?
Right.
I bet big. I bait you into betting big.
Mm-hmm.
We lay down the hands and you go, well, you only won because you had an ace. Am I not supposed to play the ace? Like, once I get the ace dealt to me, am I like, crap? Well, now, like,
oh, no.
if I play it, I'm going to freaking win. I'd really rather win with like this pair of sevens. I think that would be a more honorable win. As an honest answer, like, I don't mean this to sound meaning. I understand that, especially when I'm sick, like, I can come across incredibly condescending here. Like, I think Michael's representing an incredibly common thought here, but like, I am legitimately asking, what does that look like? You spend all this time to build a platform. You've made a life out of this. You love sharing this with your community. The community is asking to see this content. Do you not cover it? Do you not do it live? Do you not, I'd love to collab this with Todd, having a ton of fun. I want Todd to put together a group. I don't want this to stretch on into 200 hours of something that's not fun for my community, because I want them to be there along for the journey. Do you not do that? Like, how do you honor that process? Do you think there's a way forward with that?
No, I don't. I think essentially it's a friction. It's a battle between like the concept of what a content creator is, especially as it relates to a gamer, and what is a gamer. And I see a lot of friction within that, where it's like people are like, oh, you can only do this because they're a content creator. And yeah, like a content creator gets to play more hours. Content creator gets to do these things. They have opportunities that open for them. But that's just like back to my previous point. Like, you don't see the disadvantages. You don't see the disadvantages. You only see the one. And you also, like, the big news is like, oh, content creators make a lot of money. This isn't true. There are a very small percentage of content creators that get paid. But if you're not doing it for the love, you're not going to even have any opportunity. You're going to burn out so fast because the money isn't going to be there, especially if you need the money, or especially when you need the money to be there. It's not going to be there. If you make that, like, if you're not planned and prepared like you are in this case, especially since you went full time, but in your case still, like, there's a lot that went into that decision. There was a lot of like things that you had to do prior to that, right? Like, you had to work at a crappy job that was killing you. Like, you was making you sick. And it was like, and there's like, and you did that so you could pay off your debt. And then you paid off your debt. And then all of a sudden life opened up to more opportunities. So you suffered. And because of that, do you not play the ace? Do you not go full time because it gives you an unfair advantage slightly over maybe somebody else who, isn't, in that regards? I don't see it that way, because I don't see any of those as unfair advantages. Right? Like, I think that's the wrong mindset. I think that's that people training their brain to look at this and say, oh, woe is me. Like, that's the undertone I get. I can't participate in that. And so, like, and it's in that, because I'm not a full-time content creator. I've made other choices. It's like, if people
at
least 5 of them that we know of, but it's like, with that regards, like, and I'm very happy with that. Those choices mean some doors are closing. It's the concept of like, everybody has the opportunity. Not everybody's going to have the outcome. Equality of opportunity versus not actually equality of outcome. Not everybody's going to clear ultimate. And that's just the nature of it. And if you try to go and fix that, it's just not something to be fixed. You're only going to end up becoming an angry, disillusioned, disconnected individual trying to put a monster in a box that it's not going to go in that box.
Especially if you're closing doors that are open to you because you feel like it's cheating to go through them.
Yeah.
And then you're counting the number of doors that are closed.
Yes.
There are a lot of doors in life that are closed. And if you focus on counting the number that are closed, even if you close some of them, FS Asher got into Final Fantasy to play the content, the battle content, and has talked about the emphasis on lore sometimes shifting his focus where he has to prioritize something he does enjoy. He built that problem. Asmongold has said he needed a break from stream because his stream has become this place that, right, he needed to step back for a week and be like, well, your stream is just what you made it to be. And he said, okay, like that doesn't make it any less something that he needed to, yes, like he built it, but like he still needed to take a step back from it. So
yeah,
like instead of focusing on like, I made a series of choices, gosh, if you got married to somebody and you focused on every door that closed, that's not going to be a healthy marriage. If you have kids and you focus on every door that closed, you're not going to be a great parent. If you take a job and then you constantly remind your boss and your coworkers of every job you had to turn down and everything that you'd do if you didn't have this job, that job is not going to be in a position where you even can enjoy it if there's something there to enjoy. And if you want to get something and it really is a priority and you're not just saying that, there will be steps and stuff, if it is possible, that you'll make priorities towards getting towards something close to that. I've had friends that have wanted to make changes in their life, and it's what inspired me to do a lot of the same things where they've had things like debt that stopped them, and they work very, very hard to pay off that debt, and then they go pursue those chances. I never thought I would be in full-time content creation, but I knew I wanted to do something different than where I was. And my wife and I worked incredibly hard to pay off our debt and cut down on the cost of our lifestyle. We live in a very old home. I drive a very old car. Tonight we treated ourselves to Rosa's Tacos. So we're living big.
Rosa's is good though, bro.
We're living huge, guys.
Rosa's is great, dude.
I got chicken tacos with double rice. It was so good. And so like, that's the lifestyle we lead. And then an opportunity came along to go full time. And that door was open to me where it wouldn't have been. And I considered it and I took it. And then I had other job opportunities come along. Since I've gone full time, I've turned those down. I'm not counting those doors. That's not going to make this better. I'm not going to go out and like look at other streamers that might make more money or have that doesn't help me.
Right.
So like, let's focus on, because if I sit here and I look at what is in my life, if I look at, it's pretty awesome. Like it's pretty awesome. I'm playing video games like 20, 30 hours a week and then making content the rest of the time. It's awesome. I'm having a blast. And so you've just got to focus on what's good in your life. There are things, my wife and I don't have kids. And so there are moments in your life when you tell me a story about your kids and stuff where like, that's what you signed up for.
Yeah.
And so when you get joy out of having children, that's awesome. Right. And like, it doesn't take away from my joy. I don't suddenly, Brian had fun with his kids today, so I didn't even have kid fun today.
That jerk.
Right. And then on the other side of it, like I took a road trip with like 6 days notice.
Yeah.
You can't do that.
I can. But I can, but don't come home.
Give up too many other things.
I can, but don't.
Give up too many other things. Exactly. I said, do you mind staying home with my dog? And my wife goes, yeah. And I'm going to go paddleboarding with my friend. And I'm going to do some projects around the house that I don't want your input on. And I'm going to read a lot of books. And she did all that. And I was just gone. And so I think that's really the takeaway here is a lot of people are focused on the doors that Rich has opened to him. And they're not focused on the number of doors he has closed to him. Mm-hmm. Ones he's talked about. And they're not focused on the doors that are open to themselves.
Right. Absolutely. Well, I think that's the perfect way to kind of end this community feedback. Thanks for also the amazing comments, guys. That drives the discussion. I think that's one of the things that's important to continue to do is continue to talk about it. Chris, why don't you take us out?
Brian, we got to get you into some Ultimate at some point.
Yeah.
You're progressing through E10S right now. I am progressing through E12S, and let's just have some fun. It's going to be an incredible year for the game. Yeah. And we're going to be here with you each and every day you want to stop by. There's plenty of other great content creators if that's what you prefer to do as well. What a great time to be playing Final Fantasy XIV. For Chris and Brian, have a great day. We'll see you next time.
Take care.